It's day 2 after the landmark tribunal judgment affirming the victory of President Bola Tinubu at the 2023 presidential election, and we continue to explore the reactions and political implication of the pronouncements of the Presidential Election Petition Court on the show today. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Join the conversation now on X, formerly Twitter, using the hashtag Beyond100Days. Don't forget to tag at TVCNewsNG. More reactions have continued to trail the affirmation of President Tinubu's victory at the polls. Former President Muhammadu Buhari says the judgment of the Presidential Election Petitions Court is testament democracy and the people won. The Labour Party, People's Democratic Party APM, and all their candidates have asked the court to overturn the results of the election on the grounds of manipulation, irregularities, and non-compliance with the Electoral Act. But the petitioners, according to the panel of justices, failed to prove their cases beyond reasonable doubt. The former president said the court has made history by rejecting intimidation to deliver justice according to the law of the country. Former President Buhari advised President Tinubu to fulfill the promises he made to the people during his campaigns. We were on the street to feel the pulse of Nigerians on the judgment, and here's what they said.
They don't expect the court to go to the market and start looking for evidence here and there to support the judgment. I think that's what I heard from the judgment, and I think it's good. Next time, if you want to fight for something that you believe in, you should be able to prove beyond any reasonable doubt.
Nigerians should just accept their fate, because there is nothing we can do about it anyway. So we should just hope for the better Nigeria that everyone has been longing and hoping for.
Boxing ring, if that kind of judgment comes, you are a winner already. But what I would advise the winner, it should not feel too important, too big. It should bring everybody together. Let's hope for a better Nigeria.
Well, all the other political parties should try and base up for the next 4 years. They should go and prepare and plan for the next 4 years. So they should forget about going to Supreme Court or whatever.
I'm joined in our Abuja studio by political analyst Ahmed Mustafa. Also joining me is the National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, Ejimofo Okpara. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on the program. Ahmed, let's begin with some review of what we've seen in the past 2 days. We witnessed an unprecedented live broadcast of a 12-hour-long judgment on possibly the most keenly contested election in Nigeria. Are you surprised opinions remain largely divided over the submission of the 5 justices of the Court of Appeal?
Yes, I am. I'm surprised. And the reason why I'm surprised is simply because we called for the televising of this tribunal so that Nigerians can see and follow the process themselves. And I'm not a lawyer, but I took my time to follow the process, follow the judgment, the reading of the judgment, and I for one, learned a lot about the electoral process in this country and the judicial process as well. It was something that was a landmark for most Nigerians who before now had not bothered and would just sit in our rooms and hear the declaration of court or read it on the papers or newspapers or hear it on our TV screens. But today, yesterday or 2 days ago, we had the opportunity to be carried along in that. And I wonder if after all the effort put in by the federal government and the authorities involved to televise this judgment, Nigerians are still so largely divided and discontent about the judgment. But again, it goes to show us that human sentiments will always remain human sentiments, no matter how much, how open a process is. Those who would not believe in it would not believe in it. But I want to believe that the television of that judgment has calmed the nerves of a lot of Nigerians. And even though they might disagree with the outcome, they cannot fault the process.
So there's how the APC and its supporters, or rather the supporters of this administration, received that judgment, which is quite different from how other stakeholders from the other side are reacting. Outside the judgment, do you think the credibility question about the February election, in a way, has been finally resolved with the unanimous decision of the justices?
You ask me, absolutely. I never thought the credibility of the elections were in question in the first place. And for those who thought so, they've approached the court, and the courts were clear that no evidence of irregularities were presented by both parties or the three parties that challenged the outcome of the election result, could not provide any evidence to back up their claims. It's not, the courts will not rule based on emotions. Judgment will not be delivered based on sentiment. It is what you're able to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And they failed to do that. And while it is their right to further this by approaching the Supreme Court, you know, I would not question them from doing that. But I do not see how the outcome at the Supreme Court will be any different from what the appellate court had issued. Because, like you said, it was a unanimous decision amongst, there was no dissenting judgment for them to even hang a Supreme Court appeal on. So I wonder. But then it's democracy, and they have the constitutional right to push this one step further by approaching the Supreme Court. Nobody can deny them that fundamental right as guaranteed in the Constitution. So, yeah.
Perhaps we can attempt to identify and understand what is responsible for this divided opinion. For instance, the Niger Delta Congress, a social-political organization, has raised alarm on what they call the need for the judiciary to be concerned about Nigeria's future. And they have raised concerns about the judgment on Wednesday. They identified discrepancies, what they call discrepancies in evidence assessment, disregard for electoral integrity, and lack of adequate remedies for proven irregularities. What do you think? There is politics on one side, but there's also the understanding and the interpretation of what the justices have said on Wednesday. Well, have we been able to identify what really is at the root of this division?
Well, I think everybody is entitled to their opinion, but the justices of the appeal court did an excellent job in painstakingly taking time to examine each and every item as presented by the people who approached the appellate court to seek redress, who felt they had been in one way or the other cheated by the election results. And this is the beauty of it, because they took their time to tear down each and every of their arguments based off of the evidence they provided. For instance, the APC had challenged the constitutionality of Mr. Peter Obi to be the Labour Party candidate. And the court said categorically that this is purely a party matter. It does not concern you. If it was a Labour Party person that was approaching the court, it would have been a different case entirely. And the same yardstick was used to measure the double nomination as regards the vice presidential candidate of the APC in the just concluded election, Senator Kasim Shettima. And so I saw that fair balance. And with every case with every question that was asked of the judiciary, they were able to answer beyond reasonable doubt, providing sufficient reasons for making decisions and guiding their judgment. They didn't just make a blanket judgment. And I want anybody who feels that they were if any form of justice miscarriages to take their time again and watch that 12-hour-long broadcast and maybe, just maybe, put their sentiment aside if they're able to do so and watch with some level of unbias, and then they will see that the justice of the appeal court did absolute justice. For once, I am extremely proud of the judicial system in this country for the marvelous job that they did on Wednesday.
You're not actually asking anyone to go back and watch the 12-hour-long judgment. I mean, that's like condemning someone to a huge penalty. But I'll get back to you, Ahmed Mustafa, in a minute. Let's bring in the National Publicity Secretary of All Progressives Grand Alliance, Ejimofor Okpara. Mr. Okpara, your party didn't contest the election in court for obvious reasons, but how's APGA officially reacting to this judgment?
Well, as a party, we believe in the precepts of democracy, and of course, judiciary being a very integral arm of the democratic process is one that must be allowed to exercise its own duties and responsibilities to the best of their abilities. And having said that, I believe that everyone has a right to seeking redress where they feel substantially, sufficiently, violated. And we begrudge nobody who has actually approached the judiciary, to seek for redress in that regard. And we also want to laud the members of our judiciary for painstakingly, undergoing this process. And, for me, I think this is more or less reposing, justifying the confidence that Nigerians have reposed on them. The only thing you see are residues of, the negative, impacts of both, I call them the twin demon of ethnicity and probably religious bigotry. So, and over time, I think that is why the government of the day must commit a lot of effort, to what I may term national healing, so that we can begin to see things dispassionately, not necessarily from the binoculars of our religious inclination or from our tribal or ethnic sentiments. So if we're able to really, all the judges did on that day, or the justice of the appeal court the other day, they spoke to the law. Every decision they reached, they cited authorities, they quoted the extant sections of the Constitution, validating every position they took, in line with the judgment they gave. So there is nothing anyone who is open and who is law-abiding, who understands the precepts of the law, should have against such, if you ask me, a detailed, judgment. So for us as a party, we are for anything constitutional, we are for everything called democratic, and so far we have not seen any of these two being grossly violated. So we will allow the process.
Again, some would say that the Anambra State governor, who was very vocal pre-election, has been proven right. But as we speak, the presidential candidate of the PDP, as well as that of the Labour Party, have not only expressed their displeasure with this ruling, they've gone ahead to talk about their resolve to appeal the judgment at the Supreme Court. Do you agree that it will be good to see this judgment tested at the Apex Court?
Well, of course. As a matter of fact, taking it to the Supreme Court, for every judicial process, the body of our law is improved, our jurisprudence is actually also enhanced. For instance, the issue of 25% of Abuja and all that, it's good that it's been tested now, because some of these things are, the technicalities that are involved in our constitutions that oftentimes are, are not properly interpreted by people. And of course, if you leave it vague, as it were, you allow room for mischief and people to really misconstrue the letters of the Constitution. So with that being settled now, it's also going to be, good for it to be further tested and settled by the apex court of the land. And so, of course, we look at it, it's going to enrich, like I said, the body of our laws, it's going to enrich our jurisprudence. And going back to probably your opening before this question, where you talked about whether or not the governor of Anambra State, who is national leader of the party, was right, I tell you that, it's one thing you must understand is, Chinua Achebe once said that the only thing we learn from history is that we repeat it. It was no-brainer. Anyone who understands the trend and the pattern of Nigerian politics wouldn't find it difficult to make such a, spot-on prediction, or what many have called prophetic, prediction by the governor of Anambra State, His Excellency Professor Chukwuemeka Soludo. So it was just very, very simple, and that is why I tell people that the question of credibility or legitimacy of the outcome of that election, it cannot be questioned, because you cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. In 2019, both our brother Peter Atiku and Kwankwaso were all in the PDP together, and they were only defeated by the APC. And in 2023, they came out not together now, but in 3 different ways. How do they expect to do the magic? Where is the magic going to come from? You came together as one single force and couldn't achieve it, and you're doing it, in such a way that you're doing it as 3 different forces, 3 different forces that, that are not mutually exclusive, and you intend to achieve anything, so meaningful. I don't see that. So it was a spot-on analysis. And of course, if you go further to take this argument to a certain level, you would ask yourself, the senatorial elections, the House of Reps elections were conducted on the very same day, the presidential elections were also, was also conducted. And somebody will argue, you are saying that the presidential election was rife or was characterized by irregularities and all that. But that same election produced senators and House of Reps members for you that you're not questioning. So if probably you want to come to equity, then you must come with clean hands. So if you're saying that the one that produced president and on the same day produced senators for you, produced House of Reps members for you, and you want to hang INEC because probably you didn't get, what your anticipated result, then it means you're speaking, you're double standing. So for me, I think our brothers in the opposition in the other parties, I will tell them, let us continue to give democracy a chance. And let us continue to see how we can really deepen this democratic process and ensure that, we are not there yet, but that we get to a point of near perfection. And at the end of the day, it's going to be to the good of everyone.
Ahmed Mustafa, let's explore the politics behind this victory. Some would say that this election was won before Nigerians went to the poll. You can imagine if Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Rabi Kwankwaso were together under the PDP umbrella, the figures would have been quite different from what we had in February. Do you think this would change the trajectory of how easily politicians, leave their parties months or days before election?
Well, I absolutely agree that a house divided against itself cannot stand. The PDP, like your guest said, broke into three, and it made. I didn't understand how they were expecting to win elections after breaking into three different factions. If you put the votes together, gotten by the three PDP candidates, or not former PDP candidates, if you put it together, that comes to about 15 million, and that would have roundly defeated the APC. So it shows clearly that the PDP as a party failed in its internal democratic process, and that was what led to the victory of the APC. I was beyond sure the moment Mr. Peter Obi joined the Labour Party and Mr. Rabi Kwankwaso joined the NNPP, that the pathway for APC to victory had become even clearer. Let's not forget that a lot of sentiments were brought into the election, religious and tribal sentiments were brought into the elections, which might not have played out the exact same way if the PDP had stayed one. I can imagine an Atiku Abubakar on a ticket with the Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the religious sentiments of having being Muslims would not have played out in that. So the election results would have been slightly different. But I think, and I still honestly believe that the breakaway of these two men from the PDP made it a lot easier for the APC to stroll to victory. And it's not the first time we're seeing it. Even across several states in the country, the case of Oyo or Osun are examples that we see where there are infightings within the major political party, and the other political party just strolls to victory. So it's clear. And like you said, to answer your question, I think that it's high time politicians sit down and reassess this cross-carpeting ideology. It's not one that I particularly like. I've been a member of the APC from the inception, and I hope to remain in that party until the end of my time. I don't see any reason why
until you change your mind.
Find it very easy.
But just a minute, how much of a pressure? How much of a pressure is this reality bringing on your party, the APC? Some are talking about the possibility of the three men working together in the next general election. The figure doesn't look pretty well for your party, because if they were together, it would have been a landslide victory for the PDP if they were able to garner the same numbers that they produced in the last election. Do you think the APC is under pressure to perform or outperform itself to be able to become more popular with the Nigerian people?
Exactly, and this is the beauty of democracy. The APC knows very clearly that it has another 4 years to win over Nigerians who are in doubt. And I trust the president beyond reasonable, I have no doubt in the ability of Bola Ahmed Tinubu to not only rally the APC, but rally Nigerians to the benefit of 200 million Nigerians, deliver the dividends of democracy that will ensure that Nigerians see reasons to continue to cast their vote and stick with the APC and, of course, with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the 2027 election. I believe that this man is the right man to pilot the affairs of this country at this moment, and he will deliver so much for this country over the next 4 years that the next election will be a stroll in the park for the APC.
All right, Ejiofor Okpara, interesting development aftermath the Presidential Election Petition Court judgment. The PDP candidate has now cried out over the non-release of the certified true copy of the judgment, because they have 14 days left to file an appeal at the Apex Court. There's also the faction of the Labour Party led by Lamidi Apapa that has formally accepted the verdict of the court, and what that would mean for the Labour Party we'll see in the coming days. But talk to us about the role of opposition. In 14 days, and an appeal is expected to be filed to the Apex Court. In about 60 days thereabout, we're expected to hear from the Supreme Court what should be the final verdict on this judgment. But what is the role of the opposition moving forward from these litigations?
Well, I've always insisted that opposition shouldn't be destructive. Opposition shouldn't be rustic. Opposition must be issue based. Opposition must be also development oriented, because we all are jostling for power just to better the lot of our people. So if you're doing it in such a way that the essence or the welfare of the people for which you are trying to acquire power is being jeopardized, then you need to rethink your intention or your intent. Now, going back to the delays or bottlenecks in accessing the CTC of the the tribunal judgment, I think it shouldn't be. At this point, I believe everyone who wants access to the certified true copy of that judgment should have gotten it. Like I said, it will all go on to reach the body of our jurisprudence. If anybody thinks they can play politics with what should be the last hope of the common man, then the person is just trying to undo himself. Allow the process be. The cases have been established. The Supreme Court, will go on to tell us if the appeal court, that the tribunal has done a very good job, or the areas of oversight that the tribunal didn't see. Either ways, I think we should allow democracy to thrive.
I hear you.
And we should allow the judiciary.
We have to go now. Let me butt in very quickly. In 1 minute, Ahmed and Ejiofor, this verdict doesn't mean that we have a perfect electoral system. What is wrong with the 2023 general election? What would you say is the most important factor that must be worked on as we count down to another election? 1 minute each. Let's begin with you, Ejiofor.
Okay, for me, I think, of course, INEC must work towards sharpening their adoption of the electronic voting system. They must look forward. They must look into mainstreaming further the use of tech in conducting elections. And there shouldn't be ifs and buts with electoral guidelines. If they are coming up with electoral guidelines, they should make sure they stick to it to the T, because oftentimes what leads to some of these litigations here and there is the fact that INEC comes up to say they will do A and the next minute they are doing B. We understand those contingencies, but they should try to prepare, against these contingencies so that everybody will see some level of out in their activities.
Let me quickly hear Ahmed's final remarks on this.
Thank you very much. I think that we need to tend a lot more towards technology and remove the human factor from our electoral processes. And I also feel that our electoral act needs to also be as clear as possible. There needs to be no loopholes, like he just said. The law needs to be clear so that if the ordinary layman on the streets reads it, he understands exactly what is expected of INEC and what INEC is promising Nigerians. And I think that this would further help to deepen the trust that Nigerians have in the electoral process.
Political analyst Ahmed Tijani Mustafa, and also National Publicity Secretary of APGA, Ejiofor Okpara. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program this evening.
Thank you, Nifemi. Thank you, Nifemi.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our program today. You can watch a repeat broadcast at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Do have